Handout 1A, Benjamin O. Davis Jr. Directions. Read this article to learn more about an individual who fought during World War II and about the concepts of equality and marginalization. Benjamin O. Davis Jr. Determined to Succeed by Alexis O'Neill. When Benjamin O. Davis Jr. took his first ride in an airplane as a teenager in 1926, his life was changed forever. I was completely overwhelmed, he said. We flew in an open cockpit airplane. About all I remember are the takeoff and the feeling of exhilaration at being in the air. And I remember a sudden surge of determination to become an aviator. The way to make this dream come true was through the military. Davis's father, who had risen from enlisted man to officer in the U.S. Army, urged him to apply to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. There he would receive a high-quality education and enter the military as an officer. Davis's father believed that African Americans had an important role to play in the military and thought that his son could be instrumental in making changes there. Young Davis failed the entrance exam to West Point the first time he took it, but he was determined to succeed. He passed it on his second try in 1932. Davis was the only black cadet at West Point. In those days, official military instructions claimed that blacks were inferior to whites and lacked courage and strong moral character. Upperclassmen at West Point wanted Davis to quit, so they enforced a silencing against him. For 4 years, no one talked to Davis. Throughout my career at West Point and beyond, it was often difficult to reconcile the principles of duty, honor, and country with the Army's inhuman and unjust treatment of individuals on the basis of race, Davis later said. His ability to endure the silencing made him strong. He never complained to his family, classmates, or superiors. Davis's graduation in 1936 made headlines. He was the first African American to graduate from West Point in the 20th century, but when he applied to fly in the Army Air Corps, he was rejected. No African American units were to be included in the Air Corps because whites were unwilling to have African American commanders. In 1941, the War Department approved the formation of an all-African American flying unit. After flight training at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, Davis was placed in command of the 99th Pursuit Squadron. In 1943, he was leading his men in missions against enemy forces in North Africa and the Mediterranean. For his leadership during a bomber escort mission, Davis received the Distinguished Flying Cross. When the war in Europe ended in May 1945, Davis expected to lead missions against Japan. Instead, he returned to the United States to lead the all-African American 477th Bombardment Group. Before the unit was sent into action, the war in the Pacific ended. Unfortunately, another kind of war was continuing in the United States: segregation and the fight to change it. Substandard living quarters, schooling, and treatment of African American veterans appalled Davis. In 1946, the 332nd and the 477th moved to Lockburn Air Base in Columbus, Ohio. For the first time ever, African Americans administered an Army Air Force base in the United States without the immediate supervision of white officers. Lockburn became one of the best bases in the Air Force, Davis said. He continued his distinguished military career until his retirement in 1970, when he turned his talents to public service. Although Davis is proud of having graduated from West Point, he wrote in his autobiography, "I do not find it complimentary to me or to the nation to be called the first black West Point graduate in this century. We are all simply Americans. Surely the unnecessary labeling of people by race, religion, or ethnicity does nothing to bring the many diverse groups of American society together." Benjamin O. Davis Jr. demonstrated his determination to succeed, his skill as a pilot, his courage in battle, his patriotism in spite of many obstacles, and he was able to make things better for those who came after him.